So as we get throughout the NBA season, you're going to hear a lot about the Detroit Pistons, the New York Knicks, the Oklahoma City Thunder, the Denver Nuggets, and some of the better teams in the NBA. But today's video, I wanted to talk about the worst teams in the NBA. Maybe what's going wrong, why it went wrong, and what we can maybe talk about the future that can get these fan bases something to get excited about. And last year when I did this video, the Detroit Pistons were no longer in this conversation anymore. And right now, I'm not talking about the Charlotte Hornets. Shout out to you guys. Con Knipple has been one of the best rookies this year, and I've enjoyed watching Charlotte Hornets basketball. But a team that I haven't really enjoyed too much watching this year, the Sacramento Kings. I really talked myself into this team being a play-in tournament squad going into the year, and man, have they been one of the worst teams in the NBA. They are 6-21 right now, 13th in the Western Conference. They are 27th in defensive rating, 29th in net rating, dead last in offensive rating. Going into the year, I probably thought that this team was going to be closer to the top 10 than where they are right now in terms of offensive rating. This is embarrassing. This is not what this team should be doing on the offensive end of the floor. It's a bunch of guys just thrown together that don't gel well offensively, that kind of want to operate in their own style, and they're just expecting it to work. I don't know if that comes down on these players not buying in. I don't know if that comes down on Doug Christie. And to make things worse, we were all watching the NBA Cup Championship, which had De'Aaron Fox and Harrison Barnes playing in it, two former Kings, and had Mike Brown coaching in it, who was the Sacramento Kings coach less than a year ago. And this team was just so bad throughout the 2010s. They finally had a bright future with Tyrese Haliburton and De'Aaron Fox. They make the very shocking Haliburton for Sabonis trade, which gets them into the playoffs as a 3 seed in 2023, but they've been going backwards since. They haven't had a playoff appearance since that year. They've had to trade away De'Aaron Fox. They basically just recreated the Bulls in a 2.0 fashion. Now, what the Kings have for them right now is something that some other teams don't have, more specifically in the Western Conference. They own their first round pick this year, so they don't have an incentive not to tank. They could kind of bottom out in the Western Conference. Even if this team somehow miraculously made the playoffs, they're not beating Denver or OKC in a round one series. And it's easier said than done, right? But I would like to see this team maybe getting ahead of the sellers market this year and reshaping the roster for the future, because there's still some intriguing players on this team that either have trade value or you could build around going forward. Zach LaVine is still a dynamic scorer in this league. He's averaging 20 points per game this year on solid efficiency. And I feel like a team maybe that's desperate, trying to make some type of push, would trade for Zach LaVine. Can you get the Milwaukee Bucks to make a desperate offer? Can you get the Los Angeles Clippers to make a desperate offer? But even if you can't trade Zach LaVine, he only has 1 year left on your contract next year, and you can even stretch and waive him in the offseason if you really wanted to. But Zach LaVine's a good player, so I don't think you have to do that. DeMar DeRozan is 36 years old. He's still a fine scorer, still likes to operate out of his mid-range. He's no longer really a great defender, and he's definitely lost a little bit of athleticism, but his contract's not even fully guaranteed next year either. Domantas Sabonis is probably the biggest X factor on this roster. I think he would have the most trade value, but he does have the largest contract. Now, I know he's banged up right now, but Sabonis has been relatively healthy for most of his career and has just been a productive player who could flirt with triple doubles every single night. In 2023 and 2024, he made the All-NBA third team. He could have made that last year as well. He pretty much had identical numbers to those All-NBA seasons, and I do wonder if they would make some type of splash around Sabonis, or is he still going to be part of your franchise and maybe the face of the franchise right now going forward if this team still wants to be competitive in 2027. Keegan Murray is somebody to get excited about going forward. He struggled a little bit with his efficiency since coming back from that hand injury, but I do think this contract is going to age nicely for Sacramento, and I think he does a lot that doesn't show up on the box score that really shows his production on a basketball court. And then, like, could you get anything from Russell Westbrook, Dennis Schroeder, Malik Monk, Keon Ellis this year at the trade deadline? I wish they could play Devin Carter a little bit more. You're losing games anyway. But yes, this team does own their first round pick this year, which is good. Maybe they could take a flyer on a distraught young asset, like with the Jazz trade away a Cody Williams, with the Timberwolves trade away a Rob Dillingham. Just take a flyer on one of those young guys. Just don't do anything irrational. Don't go out and trade for John Morant or LaMelo Ball. Just say that this year is a wash. Hopefully the lottery gods are on your side, and then you can reshuffle some of the rotational guys in the offseason and maybe just be a little bit more optimistic about the 2027 season. I do wonder if it's going to be a different head coach, and I don't know if I love Scott Perry being the guy for the job here. Let's go over to the Eastern Conference, and the team that has been in these videos that I've been making every single year, the Washington Wizards. They're still one of the worst teams in the league. You can make a very good argument they are the worst team in the NBA. They are dead last, 30 out of 30 in terms of net rating. They are the worst defensive team in the NBA. They're the fourth worst offensive team in the NBA. And can you say that we're surprised? Nope. I expected them to be bad once again. I didn't really expect them to have a 2025 Detroit Pistons season and take this leap. Now, I have been encouraged about some of their young guys, two of them from the 2024 draft. Alex Sarr, who's unfortunately hurt right now, but looked way more efficient around the rim, still looked like a good rim protector, and I think is taking really good strides to being a franchise cornerstone for the Washington Wizards. And then you have Keyshawn George, who was a late first round pick in the 2024 draft, who has really been a good three-point shooter this year. He's looked shifty with the ball in his hands. He can create as well. He still has some lapses defensively, still has some really bad fouls, but I do think is another building block for the Washington Wizards. I thought was more of like a project 3-and-D guy. I think he's way more advanced as a scorer as we thought coming out of Miami. And I think Trey Johnson has shown plenty of flashes this year as a shot creator. He's shooting 40% from 3 and is still just 19 years old. You still have Bilal Coulibaly and maybe what he could be defensively, although the offense is still a major work in progress, and unfortunately it feels like he's taken a little bit of a step back. Bub Carrington got off to a slow start this year for the Wizards, but he's having a good couple of weeks leading up to this point. I don't think the Cam Whitmore experiment has been great for this team, but they still have guys like Will Riley on this roster, AJ Johnson, and Corey Kispert that either have some upside as a rotational guy or maybe can have some trade value one day, more so Corey Kispert in that aspect. And they have some veterans as well. Could they get anything for CJ McCollum, Chris Middleton, or Marvin Bagley at the deadline? And this team does not own full access to their first round pick, but it's top 8 protected, so they always had an incentive to not be good this year. This team is definitely going to be picking in the top 5. I'd honestly make an easy prediction that they're going to finish with the worst record, so the lowest that they could fall in the lottery is pick number 5. I think this is going to be the last year that this team kind of like officially bottoms out. I wonder what happens after the draft lottery, because if this team lands a top 3 pick, does that change their philosophy? And they're like, okay, we could be in the playing tournament next year. Did we go out and try to sign like a Trae Young as this team needs a point guard? Or is that more likely if this team lands like the 5th overall pick, they don't get one of the blue chip guys in the 2026 draft, and they're like, okay, we need to get an external addition to this team because we can't bottom out anymore, because this team has been the worst team in the NBA ever since they traded away Bradley Beal, which we all knew at the time was a few years too late. But yeah, hopefully this is the last year that I'm talking about them in this worst team in the NBA discussion video. Let's go to a team that I did not expect to be in this video whatsoever this year. They won 50 games last year. They were expected to win 50 games again this year. The Los Angeles Clippers, the oldest roster in the NBA that does not own their first round pick, is 6-21. 6-21, and they're the 14th seed in the Western Conference. They're 25th in net rating, 24th in offensive rating, and 26th in defensive rating. I don't see where this team gets better. Bradley Beal is out for the year. Chris Paul, one of the more respected veterans in the NBA, is basically getting pushed to the side by the Clippers and is either going to get waived or he's going to get traded this year. James Harden and Kawhi Leonard have actually been playing pretty good this year and have been as advertised. As just the rest of the roster can't hold up with the rest of the Western Conference or the NBA, matter of fact, just because the rest of the NBA is very deep. Teams have 7, 8, 9 guys that they can rely on most nights, but not the LA Clippers right now, because Derrick Jones Jr. is currently out with a knee injury, and he's one of their best defenders, maybe their only great perimeter defender at the moment. They still have Ivica Zubac playing at a high level. John Collins is no longer hitting his threes. Bradley Beal was a disaster for 6 games, and he's out for the year. Bogdan Bogdanovic is just not the player that he used to be, especially for what he's getting paid. So I do wonder if this team would actually dip into being a seller at the trade deadline, saying it's a sunk cost that we don't own our first round pick, but we're a big market. We have an owner that wants to spend. We can have cap space in 2026 and 2027. Could we get any type of asset for James Harden, Kawhi Leonard, or maybe Ivica Zubac? And I think given Zubac's age and contract, he'd probably net the largest return, but it does feel like the Clippers don't really want to move him at the moment. And it'd probably take a complete overpay for the Clippers to actually think about trading Zubac. But yeah, this team does not own their first round pick, like I said, and you know who owns it? The Oklahoma City Thunder, a team that is currently 25-2. That's the favorite to win the NBA Finals, and right now they're projected a top 3 pick. And the Clippers really haven't done themselves any favors drafting either, because this team has traded away a lot of their first round picks, so they really need to hit on the margins. Nope, they didn't really hit on Kobe Brown. They didn't hit on Keon Johnson. They didn't hit really on Cam Christie or Yannick Niederhauser at the moment, because when we're watching Cam Spencer ball out against Cam Christie, we could probably think they could use a guy like Cam Spencer, somebody that can help you win now, rather than another developmental guy for a roster that doesn't have that long of a window left. And I just don't see a way in which this team gets better unless they do something kind of egregious at the deadline. They trade away a 2032 unprotected first round pick to get somebody to help them right now. I don't think that would be a wise decision whatsoever. I think I would test the James Harden, Kawhi Leonard, and maybe even Ivica Zubac trade market and kind of reassess this roster in the offseason. Maybe you have some cap space, you're in a big market, and you also can use any type of draft capital because you own kind of nothing at the moment. And I don't really know what's going to happen with the aspiration scandal. Are they going to lose another first rounder as well? But yeah, if you want to talk about a complete dumpster fire this year, that's the LA Clippers for you. Now, a team that I didn't really expect to be here, but it makes a lot of sense. The Indiana Pacers, who are currently 14th in the Eastern Conference. They are 6-21 at the moment. They're the second worst offensive team in the NBA, which makes sense because of the injury to Tyrese Haliburton and all the injuries that they had at the start of the season. They're still solid defensively, though. They're 19th in the NBA in terms of defensive rating, but 4th worst in net rating. They're getting relatively healthy again. Now, Haliburton, we know, is out for the year, but they're really only missing Aaron Nesmith and Obi Toppin right now as main rotational guys. But honestly, when Haliburton was going to be out for the year, you didn't mind a 1-year gap year for this roster, and then maybe they're able to land a top 3 pick. Imagine Tyrese Haliburton gets to play with Cam Boozer, Darren Peterson, or AJ DeBanza next year. That would be electric. And Pascal Siakam is still playing like an all-star level. Benedict Mathurin and Andrew Nembhard have been playing really good as of late. TJ McConnell, Jay Huff, Isaiah Jackson have pretty much been as advertised. It's really unfortunate that Jarris Walker hasn't taken a step this year. I feel like every year we usually have one of these teams that just has the worst injury luck. A couple years ago was the Memphis Grizzlies. Last year was the Pelicans and the 76ers. This year it's been the Indiana Pacers so far. I'm keeping an eye on them though, because they've been linked to centers like Daniel Gafford and Ivica Zubac, and I wonder if they would look to add one of those bigs to really have a solid one when Haliburton returns in 2027. And then another Western Conference team that we're going to talk about, the last one here, dead last in the Western Conference, the New Orleans Pelicans. They're 6-22, but they're on a 3-game winning streak at the moment. They have been playing better as of late. They're the 3rd worst defensive team in the NBA. They're 23rd in offensive rating and 28th in net rating. And it is unfortunate that they do not own their 1st-round pick this year. We all know the trade they made on the night of the 2024 draft. Joe Dumars could look like an absolute genius if he threw a top 4 protection on that trade, or he traded a 2027 first, because Derek Queen has actually looked like a top 5 rookie this year. He's actually looked like baby Jokic and baby Şengün out there at times. He's averaging about 13 points, 6.5 rebounds, and 4 assists a night, shooting 50% from the field. And the other Pelicans rookie that they drafted in the 1st round, Jeremiah Fears, number 7 overall, has also looked like a top 5 rookie. He's averaging 15 points, 3 assists, 3.5 rebounds, shooting 45% from the field, 36% from 3. He literally has 0 fears out there. And usually these rookie guards, especially a smaller rookie guard, struggles with their efficiency or finishing around the rim, but that's not really been the case this year with Jeremiah Fears. And the reason why this team has been disappointing is because 75% of their cap space has been injured at times. Jordan Poole has missed a decent amount of time. Zion, who's surprised, has missed time this year. Herb Jones has missed some time. Kevon Looney's missed some time. Trey Murphy's missed some time. And I'm ready for the Pelicans to go in a different direction. For them, also a sunk cost right now. They don't own their 1st-round pick. You gotta move on. At least Derek Queen looks the part. It's not like you traded away your 1st-round pick for somebody as raw as like Tijon Salon in the 2024 draft. Now, that would be a disaster. No disrespect to Tijon Salon, but this team needed somebody like Derek Queen to help them out right away, and I'm ready for them to move on from Zion Williamson. They can cut him at any time in the offseason, and they don't have to pay that contract anymore, and you just need somebody that's more reliable for you, that's making up 25% of your cap space. I can't just say every single year, maybe Zion's going to be healthy this year. Maybe he's going to look the part. He's actually looked like he's in the best shape of his career, but he's actually maybe having the worst year of his career in terms of production, shooting just 50% around the rim, which is not good for Zion standards. Deke Bay has also been lights out as a 3-point shooter this year. Bryce McGowan has given them some good playing time. Micah Peavy can play good defense. I think they can get a solid trade return for Jose Alvarado and Herb Jones if they do decide to move those guys. And maybe they're eventually going to move on from Jordan Hawkins at this point. But yeah, the Pelicans are playing better as of late. I like James Borrego as the head coach, and I think he's going to be made the full-time head coach after this year. And the 3 wins aren't bad that they've gotten in a row. They ended up beating the Portland Trailblazers, a respectable team. I know they have their injuries. They beat the Chicago Bulls, who have been really bad as of late, but that Bulls team just beat the Cleveland Cavaliers, and then the Pelicans just came back by 16 in the 4th quarter to force overtime against the Houston Rockets to beat them 133-128. It was their best win of the year. I just think this team is way too talented to finish dead last in the Western Conference, so there is a possibility that it just ends up being the LA Clippers and the Thunder just get the number 1 pick. And then the last team I want to talk about, the Brooklyn Nets, who are currently the 13th seed in the Eastern Conference. They are 7-19 at the moment. They're pretty much bottom 7 in terms of defensive rating, offensive rating, and net rating. And I can't say that I'm surprised either. I am a little bit surprised on how good Michael Porter Jr. has been this year. Now, I thought Michael Porter Jr. could average 25 points per game in which he's doing, but he's being really efficient. 49% from the field, 39% from 3, 81% from the free throw line. We all kind of questioned their 2025 draft process, but Yegor Doman, Danny Wolf, and Drake Powell have all shown flashes as of late. It's just Nolan Traore and Ben Surratt look like they have a little bit to go. And Nick Claxton is still a solid big man for this team. Noah Clowney has been knocking down his threes as of late. Terrence Mann and Zaire Williams are fine athletic wings, and they still have Cam Thomas, who's a free agent at the end of the year that I assume they're going to trade. I'm just keeping an eye on the Nets because I wonder if they're going to trade away Michael Porter Jr., sell high on him. I thought he had 0 trade value in the offseason. Now it looks like they can net a positive return. This team does not own their first round pick in the 2027 draft next year. So they have no reason to have another developmental year and maybe just say we're rebuilding in 2027. I think this team wants to be aggressive. Would they go after somebody like a Trae Young, a Ja Morant, or in the offseason, do they make some type of splash for Anthony Davis or Giannis? Because I really like their head coach in Jordi Fernandez. And I think this team could be a play-in team or a playoff team in 2027. It's the Eastern Conference after all. But I also wonder if they're going to learn from their mistakes last year. In a way, they won too many games and they ended up dropping to the 8th overall pick to take Igor Dorman and missed out on somebody like Con Knipple, VJ Edgecombe, Dylan Harper, or Cooper Flag. So yeah, that's gonna be for me. I hope you guys did enjoy this video. Let me know if you did by dropping a thumbs up. Let me know what you guys think about some of these bad teams down below. Do you think that they're gonna stay here throughout the rest of the year? It's odd that we're not talking about the Utah Jazz right now. Hey, they've been better than the Kings, the Pelicans, and the Clippers, but I do expect them to maybe finish worse than those 3 teams by the end of the year. Maybe Chicago bottoms out. Maybe Milwaukee bottoms out if they trade Giannis. And I hope Charlotte doesn't bottom out because they've been really fun as of late for like the first time in a while. So yeah, make sure you're subscribed if you're not already, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.